Hi guys, this is episode number 1 of the Creativity Podcast. This is something that I've been thinking about doing for a long time, and I'm finally getting around to it. So I'm hoping in this podcast to be covering a whole bunch of different things related to music production, playing the instrument, some gear. I'm a drummer, composer, producer. My name's Jonathan Cazenave, by the way. But I'm also very interested in things that other artists do. I'm fascinated by comedians and visual artists and all kinds of art and creators. So I think I probably won't limit this podcast to just music and drums, but I'm going to start there because that's what I know and that's what I can talk about definitively right now. And in an effort to get this podcast started, along with some things I'm doing on YouTube and some other things on various places on the web. So a little bit about me. I have been teaching for about 10 years, give or take. I actually started really, really young, but steadily for almost the past 10 years. And I teach around 40 students a week privately and have been doing that for several years. I started playing at a really young age and played professionally for a bunch of years, and I do a lot of recording out of my studio. It's kind of my specialty right now is as a studio drummer. And I'm just a student of music and of the drums in general. And today's topic is going to be on double bass. And double bass is something that I've been playing for many, many years. And I did a master class today with a few of my students about double bass, kind of beginning double bass. And the thing that I wanted to talk about specifically, double bass and its uses in various musical genres. I listen to a lot of drum podcasts and listen to a lot of different kinds of podcasts, but specifically on drum podcasts and in articles and in various places around the web. I frequently hear people referring to double bass as primarily a technique that one would use in heavy metal. And I feel like that's a real kind of misconception and sort of limited way of thinking. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit today and share some of my thoughts on that. I've seen other people sort of try to articulate, well, why is double bass, strictly for metal? I don't really get it. In my masterclass today, the thing that I started with was a black and white video from 1957 of Louis Bellson, the big band drummer, playing double bass. Now, I don't know for certain if Louis Bellson was the very first double bass drummer. Maybe not, probably not. But he certainly was one of the early pioneers, one of the early people to make it popular. And I remember as a kid seeing him on television. This would have probably been in the 80s, and just seeing him playing with a big band with these double bass and just being like, wow, what is he doing? Just being fascinated with it and trying to figure out a way to record the sound off the television so that I could, go back and listen to it and figure out what he was doing. But the point is, if you look back, to 1957, this black and white footage of him killing the double bass and doing all this cool stuff, it gives us a new perspective that perhaps double bass is not just for heavy metal. So I moved on in my masterclass today after showing them a couple of other clips with Louis Bellson playing, some in the 90s and little with actual color, things like that. We checked out Hot for Teacher from Van Halen in the 80s, which was, of course, a huge hit for them. So now you have double bass in the pop world, which is what that music was at that time. We checked out Quadrant 4 from Billy Cobham, and we checked out a little bit of Space Boogie from Simon Phillips. I had the honor of doing a master class with Simon Phillips many years ago, and he explained the beat for Space Boogie, and that was really cool. Let's see. We also looked at a little bit of Steve Smith, Steve Smith has certainly used double bass in a lot of different genres as well, and has been another person that I have gone to clinics through the years, and have definitely taught me a lot of things about double bass and a lot of unique ways to use double bass. And then I also played them a song that I did. I have a project called Giant One, and I released a song in 2015 or 16 called Ebb and Flow. If you want to check it out, it's on iTunes or Spotify or wherever. But it's Giant and a number one, Giant One, and the song is called Ebb and Flow. And it's kind of a pop, kind of indie pop with a little funk kind of vibe to it. But it has a sort of slow 16th note pattern. And it's just what came out when I wrote the song, and it worked in the song. It was one of the building elements of the song. So far we have big band jazz. Of course, we have various kinds of rock and roll. Of course, we have some amazing double bass players in all different kinds of in all genres of metal, all the subgenres of metal. Fusion, some great players in fusion. I think double bass right now is a little bit, it's kind of fallen a little bit out of favor in the mainstream, in my opinion, because one of the things that's really hot right now is working on just your right foot, making your right foot really, really fast, and trying to achieve as much as you can with just a single bass. And that is really, really cool. It's something that I'm working on as well. And I totally, as you can push the boundaries of one foot, then of course you can push the boundaries of both feet together. So I think that's a really cool pursuit. But right now it's, everything ebbs and flows. Everything goes in and out of popularity. Big kits, little kits, trashy cymbals or crystally, sounding cymbals. Ringy toms, dead toms, big bass drums, little bass drums, small hi-hats, big hi-hats. I've seen a lot of these things go in and out of favor, like guitar as an instrument, sometimes is really, really popular in modern culture and sometimes it's not. So the same thing, of course, applies with something like double bass. And it'll take somebody really, really cool coming along and incorporating it in something a little more mainstream for it to be like super cool again. But it will happen. I would bet $100 on it. So if anybody wants to take that bet, hit me up. So, but my point is, as an instrument, just like right now, hybrid kits are all the rage. Everybody has a hybrid kit. Everybody has electronics on their kit, and with their acrolite and their cool custom made bass drum or whatever. So the same thing will happen with double bass. A lot of people still use a double pedal, of course. That's what I use most of the time. But I want to just drop the idea out there that double bass can be used in a lot of different kinds of genres in a lot of different ways, in very creative ways that don't have to be just what we typically think of as a heavy metal setting or speed metal setting or something like that. And, when you look back, of course, like what Belson was doing with it was, of course, more in a solo context. He wasn't playing it, as far as I know, as much in the context of with big band music while he was actually playing the songs. Although I think he did pepper fills with double bass here and there. But that's just one teeny example of a whole bunch of different genres. And I was proud of the work that I did on Ebb and Flow because I felt like it was a kind of a funky, groovy kind of song. The double bass is subtle in there, but it's throughout the whole and just about the whole entire song, or at least through the verse section. So maybe I'll drop that. Maybe I'll drop that in since I have 100% legal right to do that. It's my song. So maybe I'll drop some of that in on the tail end of this podcast. But I'm hoping that this discussion will maybe get some people thinking about the fact that double bass does not just strictly have to be for heavy metal. And I think it's kind of gotten pigeonholed into that. And I think that's kind of a ridiculous concept. It's sort of like, saying that, ride cymbals are just for jazz. I mean, all it is, it's just an extra bass drum. It's really what we choose to do with it. And so that's something that I'm hoping that some of you listening out there will start to think about and explore and maybe break some new ground with. It's something that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be thinking about ways that I can use double bass in whatever it is I'm doing, in more, if it's a more mainstream context, or if it's whatever I may be doing, if I'm writing new kinds of music. But I'm going to be looking for opportunities to see if double bass might fit in with whatever it is I'm doing. And I also might do some videos about that specifically. Some videos that say, hey, here are some things to think about. Here's some ways you can use double bass patterns that aren't necessarily the ways that we've thought about in the past, a little bit thinking outside of the box. And so if you guys have any ideas about that, let me know. This podcast, I'm going to try as much as possible to have a general idea in mind about what it is I want to talk about and sort of go a little bit stream of consciousness, but hopefully it will be informative and fairly concise, as I'm talking. The length is going to vary greatly, but if you like this idea that I'm talking about so far, and you would like to hear some more, please let me know, as well as please subscribe to this podcast. I would love to hear some of your thoughts on double bass, on creative ways that you use double bass. If you have a video on YouTube, or if you just want to reach out via email, or if you want to send me a message, any of those are fine, just to say, hey, I've thought about this too, or I'm trying to do some different things with double bass. Or how about you might just think, nope, you know what? Double bass should only be in heavy metal. That's the only place that it should be. Get with the times. My main website is jkazmusic.com, JCAZMUSIC, jkazmusic.com. And you can hit me up at jc@jkazmusic.com if you like. I'm all over the web, so I'm pretty easy to find if you just put in my name, or I'm the Studio Drummer on YouTube. And by the way, if you are not on Instagram as a drummer, you should definitely get on Instagram. There's a fantastic community of drummers on Instagram, really supportive of each other. Some great videos and photos and cool stuff happening and being made. One of the things that really helped put a fire under me, and there's been a lot of things on Instagram that have inspired me, so definitely check out the drum community, some of the people that I follow on Instagram. Again, I'm the Studio Drummer on Instagram. But what are your opinions about double bass? I think it's just an extra instrument that you play with your left foot that doesn't have to be tied to any genre. And quite honestly, I've been a little bit surprised at some of the people that I admire and listen to who have sort of seemingly just written it off as a heavy metal thing, So a little bit surprised about that, especially with this rich history we have in fusion music of great double bass players like Simon Phillips and Steve Smith and Billy Cobham and all these great guys. So guys, let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed listening to this, and hopefully having my voice in your ear will make your day a little bit better. I'm all about positivity and all about trying to just share cool information with people, and I hope to talk to you soon.
drummer.